So, as soon as the stats came out for all these different Pokemon, some of the first competitive sets that I saw going online were the 3 Final Evolved starters. And so, of course, my mind, typically in the super low tiers, thought, well, what about their pre-evos? Because you see Pokemon like Marshtomp and Wartortle all the time in lower tiers, so why wouldn't you see Torracat, Brionne, or Dartrix in the lower tiers? And so, I got to looking into it, and I can see Torracat and Dartrix being somewhat competitive in lower tiers and doing something different than their final evolutions, which is what I was really looking to do in these videos. Unfortunately, I won't be making a video on Brionne, and that's just because it would have the exact same role as Primarina. So anyway, now that that's set aside, we're going to go over Torracat today, which is the starter I chose, and I really love this Pokemon's design. I think I would have preferred it not go bipedal and stand on 2 legs, but I'm still okay with it. So looking at its stats, its HP is not the best, its defenses are pretty terrible, its attack and special attack are under average, but they're pretty good for a lower tier Pokemon, and its speed at base 90 is actually pretty good for this generation. And so what I focused on mainly with Torracat was the fact that its speed is higher than its final evolution, and its special attack actually doesn't change. So that would mean that it may have a leg up on Incineroar just because it's quite a bit faster. So as far as weaknesses go, this Pokemon has 3 in Water, Ground, and Rock. Because it is only a Fire type, it has yet to get its Dark typing added, because that was only with the final evolutions. And Fire actually has 6 resistances, and Ice and Fairy are really the big ones out of that. That's 2 really good types to resist. And Torracat, at the time of making this video, does not yet have its hidden ability, Intimidate, which is a absolutely amazing ability. But the sad thing is, it's not released. But in this scenario, I think Blaze is actually the better ability for Torracat. So if you don't know what these abilities do, Blaze is the ability that all starter Pokemon get that are on the Fire type, and Water and Grass type Pokemon get their coinciding abilities. And what it does is it increases your Fire type moves when you're low health. And Intimidate, for those who don't know, reduces your opponent's attack by 1 every time you switch in. Really, really great ability in VGC. Otherwise, still very useful, but in this case, I think Blaze is better. And that's because I think Torracat is somewhat decent of a especially offensive, speedy sweeper. And so, the idea behind this set is to make sure Stealth Rocks are not on the field. Run a Focus Sash, a Timid Nature to max out your speed as high as you can get it. Then you want to max out your special attack and speed just to be fast and strong. That 4 in defense is actually optional. You could run minimal defenses and HP investment just to try to ensure that your opponent will knock you down to your Focus Sash. Because no matter what, you're not taking a hit very well, even with your resistances. Base 50 defenses are just not good at all. And so the idea behind this would be to switch in, preferably on a free switch in, or if you knew your opponent was going to do something that wasn't going to damage you. Set up a nasty plot when either they're switching out or they're knocking you down to your sash, and then Fire Blast everything away. But obviously that has its problems, because Torracat actually learns no other special moves whatsoever that aren't also Fire type. So it does get Overheat, Blast Burn, Ember, Flamethrower, but as far as other special moves, it gets Hidden Power and Round, which is competitively useless in my mind. So it's really hard to run coverage, but as far as quote-unquote coverage goes, Hidden Power Ground is your best bet, because then the only mons you're hitting for not very effective damage, there are only about 20 of them, as opposed to the many types that can wall just Fire-type coverage. The last move really doesn't matter. If you think your opponent's going to try setting up on you as well, and they'll be able to out-set up on you, then you could run Taunt to force them to attack you, knock you down to your sash. And you could also run Protect to try to avoid priority moves like Fake Out or First Impression that only work in the first turn. Along with this, as I mentioned earlier, Blaze activates when you're low health. So if you were to get knocked down to your focus sash, then suddenly Fire Blast is much stronger, even through your stab, and it alone should be able to burn through most lower tier teams that don't have something dedicated to walling a fire type. So as far as another set goes, I just thought of a speedy set that you could run on Torracat. Same idea, focus sash, jolly nature, and more physical sweeper. This would be something similar to Incineroar, it's just more based in speed than in HP, but really you're just using your coverage, which would be Flare Blitz or Flame Charge. Flare Blitz is kind of optional because if you're going to get knocked down to your sash, then Flare Blitz would obviously knock you out when you hit the opponent with it because the recoil will be at least 1. You could also run Crunch and either Leech Life or Acrobatics for coverage, and Acrobatics would be another situation where you want to run minimal defenses, so no investment in HP and no IVs in HP defense or special defense, just to almost guarantee that you get knocked down to your focus sash, lose it, and then Acrobatics is at double power. Other moves that could be decent on Torracat would be Bulk Up, U-Turn, Shadow Claw, Revenge, Will-O-Wisp. Same basic idea. Bulk Up if you tried to put defense into this Pokemon, which I really wouldn't recommend. U-Turn, you could run a Choice Scarfed or Banded set if you really chose to. Banded actually may work pretty well in lower tiers, and just U-Turn and then just have coverage on him from there. You could also run Shadow Claw, but it's kind of redundant if you're running Crunch. They do about the same thing, but since you're not getting stab from Crunch, Shadow Claw may be your better option. It's just whatever you prefer, the 10 extra base power and chance to lower defense, or the high critical hit ratio and less Pokemon that resist ghost typing. Revenge is also an option, even though you'll probably be faster. It's your best chance at hitting your opponent with a fighting type move. And then Will-O-Wisp is just there to burn your opponent. But really, I've been wanting to share this set since all the stats came out. I just think that Torracat had something unique on it that Incineroar didn't in its extra speed and its ability to Nasty Plot, and it saddened me so much that it had nearly no special coverage at all, but I still think it could be useful in the right hands.